The movie begins with Nancy, who lives a perfect life in Holland with her family. Everything goes well until she starts suspecting her husband Fred of hiding something. One day, while doing laundry, she finds a note in his pocket with a girl's name on it. Later, when she visits his office, she notices a miniature model of the city with only a few houses and streets. She wonders why Fred, an eye doctor, would need such a model. Nancy becomes certain that Fred is keeping secrets. Being a teacher, she confides in her colleague Dave, expressing her doubts about Fred. She asks for his help, but Dave refuses, calling it a personal matter. That night, while cooking, Nancy becomes so upset that she ruins the food. Fred notices her frustration and apologizes at the dinner table, suggesting they start fresh. Nancy never showed her suspicion, so Fred's sudden apology confuses her even more. Later that night, Nancy goes to the gallery where Fred keeps his belongings and finds a hidden camera. She becomes even more anxious, questioning why he needs a camera and why he hides it. Suddenly, she hears noises outside the house. Scared, she grabs a hammer and steps out, only to find a raccoon in the trash, which runs away. When she looks back, she sees a light on inside and a shadow of a girl with Fred in one of the rooms. Just then, she notices her son outside in festive clothes, running into the woods. She follows him and reaches a road where she sees dead bodies under her feet. A second later, the bodies disappear and she starts drowning in water. Suddenly, she wakes up. It was all a dream caused by her constant worry about Fred. The next day, Nancy meets Dave at a restaurant and tells him her suspicion has grown stronger. She pleads for his help to catch Fred red-handed. Dave is hesitant, but when Nancy holds his hand, he agrees since he secretly likes her too. Nancy explains the plan. Dave should visit Fred's clinic pretending to need an eye checkup and secretly unlock the washroom window so they can sneak in at night. Dave visits Fred's clinic as planned. Though nothing is wrong with his eyes, Fred asks him if he teaches at the same school as Nancy. Nervous, Dave denies knowing any teachers. When Fred steps away, Dave tries to leave, but Fred stops him and pours some drops in his eyes. As soon as Fred leaves the room, Dave tries to run but bumps into a police officer, which frightens him. He rushes to the washroom, opens the window, and wedges a paper to keep it unlocked. Dave escapes and meets Nancy in her car, shaken and scared. He tells her he can't continue helping, but Nancy is grateful for his bravery. They both grow emotional and closer, revealing mutual feelings. That night, Nancy lies to Fred, saying she's going to a party at a friend's place, but instead, she and Dave go to the clinic. They sneak in through the washroom window. Meanwhile, Fred receives a call from the same woman Nancy used as an excuse. Her son has a serious eye infection, and she asks Fred to come quickly to the clinic. As Fred leaves home, Nancy finds multiple debit cards and an album of house photos inside the clinic, all taken with Fred's hidden camera. Before she can investigate further, Dave calls to warn her about Fred. Shocked, she tries to escape but drops her earrings onto Fred's model. Fred arrives at the clinic and begins the checkup for the boy. He then asks the woman about Nancy, but she reveals that Nancy never came to her house. Fred realizes Nancy lied. Meanwhile, Nancy is actually at Dave's house and both have grown very close. Fred's clinic. In the secret room where the miniature model is kept, Fred finds Nancy's jewelry, confirming she had broken into his office. Outside Dave's house, some students show up to threaten him for punishing them earlier. After they leave, Dave tells Nancy he cannot live this kind of hidden life. He asks her to divorce Fred if she truly wants to be with him. Nancy refuses, saying she loves Fred deeply. She adds that if Fred is ever caught cheating, she would consider divorce. But Fred's financial status is much stronger, and he might win custody of their son. Nancy cannot live without her child. She returns home and falls asleep. That night, she dreams of her son drifting away from her. Waking up frightened, she finds Fred sitting near her feet. He asks how her night out was, and she lies, saying it was great. Fred, however, doesn't mention that he already knows she lied. Back on her secret mission, Nancy traces the debit card number she took from Fred's clinic and finds out that a very expensive gift was recently purchased with it. Later, she sees a gift box on her bed and wonders if Fred bought it for her. Possibility makes her happy. Fred then returns her lost earrings and reassures her not to worry. Days later, Nancy attends an office party where Dave is also present. She enjoys his company and finds herself thinking about him afterward. Feeling attracted, she calls him and says she is ready to be with him, but he must do one last thing: help her gather evidence against Fred so she can file for divorce. Dave agrees and they begin their mission. They discover that Fred booked a hotel room. Their plan is simple. Dave will distract Fred downstairs while Nancy sneaks into his room to investigate. Inside the room, she finds strange items like handcuffs and bizarre objects with no apparent purpose. She wonders about Fred's intentions. Dave fails to keep Fred distracted and quickly warns Nancy. She leaves the room before getting caught. Based on what they find, Dave believes these items prove Fred is having an affair. He tells Nancy that they only need a photo of Fred with his girlfriend as final proof, and then she can leave him. Nancy agrees and returns home. Later, Nancy again examines Fred's miniature model of Holland. She finds a file containing blueprints of the houses in the model. Curious, she investigates and learns that each house was linked to a case where a woman's dead body was discovered. All were murders, and the killer was never found. Nancy realizes the horrifying truth. Fred is a serial killer. While Nancy continues her research, Dave follows Fred's car and ends up at a secluded house near the forest. A woman arrives to meet Fred. Dave sees this as the perfect chance and begins taking pictures as Fred greets the woman. But as Dave gets closer and enters the house, he discovers a chilling scene. Fred has tied the woman and slit her throat. Blood pours rapidly as the woman nears death. Dave is in shock, unable to move. Suddenly, Fred notices him. Realizing Dave is spying, Fred grabs a knife to attack. Dave tries to escape but falls out of the window. Fred follows him outside and tells Dave that he knows everything about his connection with Nancy and the plan to track him. Fred approaches with intent to kill, and Dave, terrified, runs toward the lake. Dave reaches the lake's edge and finds a boat. He tries to untie it to escape, but Fred catches up and grabs him from behind. Just as Fred is about to strangle him, Dave snatches the knife from Fred's hand and stabs him in the stomach. Fred falls into the water and Dave survives. Believing he has killed Fred, Dave thinks it's all over. The next morning, Dave returns to town and burns the clothes he wore during the murder. He notices multiple missed calls from Nancy, who was trying to tell him the truth about Fred. However, Dave creates a different story and tells Nancy that he caught Fred red-handed, showed him a photo, and threatened him to stay away. According to Dave, Fred agreed and left to avoid further trouble. Nancy is surprised, as Fred used to claim deep love for her. Still, she trusts Dave's story and starts living with him. Despite everything, Nancy remains fearful that Fred might return one day and harm her like the women he had killed. On the other hand, Dave begins to suffer mentally, haunted by nightmares of the murder he committed. A few days later, a festival takes place in Holland. Nancy attends with her son. When her friends ask about her husband, she lies, saying he is away on vacation. Another friend says he just saw Fred at the festival. This terrifies Nancy. As she frantically searches for her son, she spots Fred in the crowd and panics. She starts looking for her son desperately. While searching, she runs into Dave, who arrives with a gun. Nancy realizes that Dave intends to harm her son to remove any barrier between them. Angry and scared, she rushes home with her son. Dave follows. He decides to confess everything and tells Nancy that Fred murdered a girl while he was spying on him. Dave says he killed Fred in self-defense and threw him into the lake. Nancy is shocked and reveals that Fred is still alive. Her son, who overhears everything, now knows that his father is a serial killer. Dave finds it hard to believe Fred is alive and suspects Nancy is making it up. Overwhelmed, Dave decides to surrender to the police. Just as he dials, Nancy grabs the phone and pushes him, injuring his head. Nancy grabs Dave's gun and runs outside, telling him not to worry. She is just going to get help. Inside, she sees Fred, who has her son with him. Fred asks to speak to her privately. He tells Nancy to forget everything she knows and promises a fresh start. Acting like a devoted wife, Nancy agrees and gets into the car with Fred and her son. Once inside, Nancy points the gun at Fred and tells her son to run. She fires, but being inexperienced, the bullet only grazes Fred's ear. Enraged, Fred attacks her and is about to kill her when her son returns and pushes him away. Nancy grabs her shoe and hits Fred repeatedly on the head until he finally dies. Nancy embraces her son, finally feeling safe. In the post-credits scene, it is revealed that Nancy and Dave get married. The three of them begin living happily as a family, marking the end of the story. I hope you liked my video. If you did, please like and share it. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We keep bringing such content regularly. Peace.